In addition to notes which make up melody, or single notes that is, we can have notes that appear simultaneously, and they're called chords. Usually a chord means 3 notes or more, and actually the technical term for that is harmony. And there's quite a lot of theory going on here, but essentially what I'm going to show you is the basics in terms of major and minor chords. Now, chords are based on scales. If we have C major scale here, which goes C, D, E. In fact, I will input this on here as quavers so that you can see it. So on your screen you can see 8 notes that ascend from middle C to the C above that at the end. Remember, face, the 3rd space up with that C. Now if I just go, okay, well I'm just going to describe how the chord is made up from that scale. And it's one rule, 3 notes. We have the 1st note of that scale, the 3rd note and the 5th note played together. So we've got C, D, E, F, G. So if I put the C, E and G together, if I just take the scale away now, in fact no, I'll put it in this bar. There we go. So if I just input a note there, and I'm going to make it, crotchet. You can see now that the 1st, 3rd and 5th notes are grouped together, so they are literally one stacked on top of the other. You can have any number of notes stacked on top of each other. In fact, it does get slightly confusing when you see notes that are seemingly next to each other, but actually they are simultaneous. So if I did something like this, you can see that the note there has some of the notes one side of the stalk and some the other. But as long as they're joined to the stalk, it means that they will be played simultaneously. So if I just delete that one, we have ourselves a C major chord. C major chord is built from a C major scale. Now we have other chords. Of course, there are 12 major chords and 12 minor ones because of the number of notes that you get in an octave. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 notes before returning to the same letter name that we had at the start, because we've got all the black notes. Sure, there are only 7 white ones, but when you add the 5 black notes, you get your 12 what are called semitones. Now this is a little bit tricky to fully sort of get into, but actually if you know the basics of how a chord is made, actually you can start to work that out. So a C major chord has C, E and G in it. So there is one other main type of chord that we have, which is called a minor. Now, some people think of the major chord as being a bright and happy chord, you know, the sun rising, and the minor chord is thunder and rain and funerals and all of that sort of stuff. So we've got a major chord, which is this, and a minor chord, which is this. So you have a major, minor. Gradually, you get used to those sort of sounds, thinking, oh, does that sound like a happy chord or a sad chord? So you can tell the difference between your major and a minor. Now, in terms of the notes of the chord, the 3 notes that we had, C, E and G, in order to change it to a minor chord, we only have to change one of the notes. But the note that you change is, of course, critical. The C stays the same. And actually, the G, the 5th note of the scale, also stays the same. It's the 3rd that changes. And what happens is it turns from an E to an E flat. What's a flat? What's a sharp? Well, we're going to get on to those in terms of the notation here. In fact, what I can do is I can play that C minor chord. There we go. You can see that one of the notes, the middle one, has got a symbol next to it, and it's always to the left, a bit like if you write pounds or dollars. It's always to the left of the note, not to the right of it, and that's really important when you're doing your composition. If you're handwriting, I know most people do it on computer now, but if you handwrite anything, the symbol has to come before. So we've got a C chord, which is this one here, C major. Note that I just said C chord there. Some people assume that major is the default. So if you're shouting chords across the stage at somebody, you'll just be going C, F, G. They're all major chords, whereas the word minor is introduced only to signify that it's a different chord type. So major can be thought of as the default. Minor, this one, has the E flat in the middle. On the piano, a flat is usually a black note. It's not always. You can get white notes that are called flats as well, but we won't go there just yet. E flat is the note that's immediately to the left of your natural note, or just the plain E. Retain that word natural for these notes, because that's what they're generally called. If you have flats, you also have naturals, and you have sharps as well. So that note of E flat is actually called D sharp as well, because you've got D here and then the sharp is to the right of it. Now if you have GarageBand for iOS, you can actually set the keyboard to show where all the notes are on the keyboard. So if you've got an iPhone, you can see where the position of all of the notes are on the piano. That's pretty handy. There's all sorts of tools online. There's a piano online that you can play using the keys on the keyboard, but it's best, if you can, to have something that you can actually play on. Something like this. This is an Akai LPK25, and it was about £20, and it just comes out of the USB on the side and goes straight into the side of your computer. It'll also play iOS sounds if you've got an iPhone or an iPad. So you've got major and minor chords. Now, how do chords work in a sequence then? Well, that's a bit more of an explanation, but essentially that C major scale that we had, we can actually use all of those notes to create the chords that go in what's known as the key of C major. This is a C major scale. We had C, E and G for C major. We term that chord 1. Now 1 is the uppercase Roman numeral, so it's like a giant I symbol. That's chord 1. Chord 2, I use the 2nd, the 4th and the 6th notes of that scale. Now, that sounds kind of dramatic. Sounds a bit sadder. That's because it's a D minor chord. If I move up one stage more, I get E minor. I get another dramatic chord. If I move up once again, I get a major chord. And again, another major chord. If I move up one more space, I get a minor chord. So that means in a major key, the chords 1, 4 and 5 will be major chords. Chords 2, 3 and 6 will be minor chords. Now, of course, the rules are there to be broken. You can have major and minor chords that swap over. But really, for the purposes of this exercise, missed. Which is what you'll hear pumped out of pianos in practice rooms up and down the land. Now, we had C major, A minor. Notice I came down to A minor. This A minor and that A minor are the same. You don't have to play a chord in a particular position. It can go anywhere on the piano. Although, of course, if you play too low, it sounds almost inaudible as a chord. So I had C, A minor, F and G. If I change the order of those chords to C, G, A minor, F, I've just played to you about 1,000 pop songs. So the order: chord 1, chord 5, chord 6 and chord 4 make up rock and pop music. A lot of it. You listen to something, it's because it's predictable, it's safe, it's something that the human ear can pick up. Music is based really on our experiences, and whether, you know, if we listen to something that's simple, it's because we've heard it many times before, rather than it being mathematically simple. If we'd all grown up with that from day one, that would be your pop record. But it's not. It's chords. Now, if I just go on to MuseScore and show you how this works, I'm going to input these chords. Now, I played it up an octave there because it just makes it a little bit easier to read on the page here. So we've got 4 chords that sort of that dance up and down a bit. This is a bit problematic because you have to move a lot on the piano. However, a chord, a C major chord, C, E and G, is made up of the notes C, E and G. This means that those notes can be swapped around in any order. If you imagine a triangle where you've got C, E and G as the corners, if you turn the triangle around, you've still got the same triangle, but those notes have moved around. So I could have, instead of C, E and G, I could have E, G, and then the C at the top. I could do the same thing again. I could have a G, a C, and an E. And then if I do one more of those, I'll get back to where I started. So you can actually what's known as invert the notes in those chords in order to make your chord sequence much, much smoother. So if I have this, if I just open up another score on MuseScore, I'm going to play the chords this time, but so that the notes don't move very far. So you can see that the notes, they're doing this rather than that. That's a really important, if there was ever a fundamental music theory sort of tip about chords, then that's it. It's keeping your chords so that they don't move very far. Now, I know this is rather a strange thing to say, but the piano was designed by a human being for another human being to play, which means that for most people, an octave is an octave being the distance between 2 notes that are called the same, C and C, for example. We have the ability to be able to find any other note without looking. Also, to be able to find any other note to play your chords. C, G, A minor, F. So if you know what notes are in all of those chords, there's nothing to stop you actually playing a chord that's in different inversions for a bit of expression. All I've done there is take the same 3 notes and just done different inversions to create a rhythm. And there it is. There's a bit about chords. Now this video is obviously a bit longer because it's quite a big area.